Ah, Briony Greenhill, welcome back.
Thanks, Tim. Hello, good morning. Nice to be here again. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you're welcome. What a wonderful sight that is behind you. It's so spring-like and it feels warm because here it suddenly got cold yesterday. There's a northeasterly blowing and it's fucking freezing. So
Oh,
now I'm looking at your background and I'm feeling, that opening that I was feeling a few days before when it was quite warm here.
yeah.
But you're further south, so it's happening quicker.
I'm in the Pyrenees. Do you want to see where I am?
Yeah, show us.
I'm at a moulin, a mill, Moulin Vert. We just moved in last night. We're here for 2 months. That's the house of Laurence Deleuze, the landlord, but he's in Canada at the moment. This is our sort of barbecue. This is our back of our house, the entrance of our house. This is our mill. And then France is just going into hard lockdown for 4 weeks. So oh dear, we're stuck here. We're here for 2 months. I can't see what you can see. These, some of the mountains, I love them already very much.
Ah, the Wi-Fi can't reach that far.
Is it glistening?
Oh yeah, we've got it now.
And the wisteria is just starting to bloom. And yeah, it used to be. It's got lots of history. It used to be a wheat mill and an olive oil press, and it used to be a hangout area, and everybody would come because everybody would grow their own wheat and olives, and then they'd all come because downstairs in the building there's like bits of the old mill, and they would come to mill their wheat into flour, I suppose, and then there they'd press their olives into olive oil. So then they had their bread and their oil, and that was the kind of the foundation of sustenance. And so then while it was being milled, they'd hang out, they'd swim in the river, they'd chat. It was kind of a community hub back in
Mhm.
the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I would have been a miller back then, because they always have the best places to live, and they've got the mill pond for swimming, and there must be something so rewarding in that providing the raw ingredients for everybody's bread. That sort of you're at the heart of the community, like one of the most important people.
You are, but then often it's a like Lawrence published a kind of this I don't know non-fiction story about the history of this place in the New England Review, and it's partly about how disliked the miller was because he had a monopoly, right? And so everybody would come, and everybody else's fortunes would rise and fall, and their crops would be abundant one year and sparse another year. But the miller kept his prices, what his prices were, and people had no choice. So he was always rich, and his son went off to music school in Paris and spent all the money on drinking and girls and didn't study music at all, and all these like profligate rich things. Um, and my mum says in England the miller is often disliked, and there's stories about the miller putting bricks and stones in the bottom of the bag and then charging people by the weight. And they get home, they're like, "You fucker, you that's that's criminally rude to make a."
Surely you couldn't get away with that because
Well,
those
what are you
people
gonna
are
do? You're
coming
gonna.
every day, so or every week.
Well, no, but what are you gonna do? You're gonna.
Mm.
It's like choosing wealth over love, over community love, because people have no choice. What can they do? They can kill you, or but if there's no real justice system, and you've got the mill, you've got the power, and you can be exploitative. So it comes down to the values of the miller. You're going to be a provider. Uh,
Yeah, I will be the big-hearted miller.
you would be the.
Takes care of everybody.
I believe. I believe.
Yeah, yeah, and,
Yeah.
and 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 kind of resurrects the good name of the miller from
There
the,
you
the
go.
sort of tawdry
From the
exploits of
exploitative,
others.
greedy one.
Although it's
Yeah.
funny you say, also saying that kind of brings up something that I've been sort of wrestling with, because I think, and this is a hard thing to kind of acknowledge, but I think I'm fascinated by the scapegoat, by this idea of the person who gets blamed, who's like the carrier for the community's ills. And I guess maybe that even relates to sacrifices that went on in the past, that they would kind of pick somebody like that. Because I sometimes identify with that character and I hate it. I don't want to be the scapegoat. But experiences I've had, sometimes I've become that in a way for other people. And it's a fascinating subject. So I think I might get into it and find out more. But when you have those things, those kind of realizations about yourself that you don't like, I don't know if that's a common thing, but I felt like there's something that I've been doing that has created that energy that has, because it's always a two-way thing, right? It's not that you're the hapless victim of the community's ill will. It's that somehow something in you has also taken on that role. And it's something that there's almost a shame in me saying this to associate something with that. But I definitely have a feeling, and it's just as I'm talking now, it makes me realize it's something I want to explore. I want to get, like, maybe research it a little bit and find out what that history is of the scapegoat. Yeah. And you have there's another character in the naval kind of tradition, which was the Jonah, which was the
What's that?
similar thing. Jonah's was the person who's kind of brought bad luck to the boat, and then all the kind of bad things that happen get loaded on this person, and it's like until that person leaves or dies, the luck of the ship, just won't change, which is a terrible position. Because can you imagine in a small community like a ship, so I'm talking about the kind of Napoleonic Wars and the British Navy when they were at their kind of prime, sort of ruling the world, or ruling the waves rather. And it was all kind of wooden, square-rigged ships, but you might be at sea for months, with the same people in a very small space. Um, yeah, but to be that character would be the most incredible form of psychological torture as well, because you would feel all of that. And I suppose maybe it's an animal thing as well, like when someone's slightly different, or there's a sort of suspicion or a dislike or a mistrust of things that are slightly out of the ordinary. Yeah. There we go. Don't know where that came from, but that was interesting.
Mm. It's
Mm.
profound, Tim. Love it. Um, yeah, I think the willingness to do shadow work, the willingness to, the sun's moving. I might need to move to not squint too much, but the willingness to, and the capacity, something in the art of living, which is about finding a balanced view between what we might call shadow and light. And this morning we were talking about consciousness. That was the 6:45 a.m. conversation. Do we see the river as conscious? Because we wake up and the first thing we hear is the river. It's like, is it conscious? And for Jean-Michel, it's not conscious because awareness is. I'm coming to your point, by the way. I'm just going apparently on a bit of a round route. Awareness is the ability to be aware of something and then make conscious choices about, I'm going to put my awareness on you. I'm going to put my awareness on my artistry. I'm going to put, to direct your intention on your left knee or whatever. And that is what he is thinking of as consciousness. And I'm like, wow, like I've never defined it, but my view of it isn't so mental. I'm like, the river can heal itself. The river is this incredible elixir of life that moves from mountain to ocean, through sky, through 3 states of being. It gets imprinted, like music changes it, words change it. I mean, I don't know if the river has a human frontal cortex that is choosing to now heal myself. Probably, I don't know. It doesn't have a frontal cortex. It doesn't have a human brain. But does that mean it doesn't have consciousness? No, not to me. It means it has a river consciousness, and I don't fully understand what river consciousness is. But I am humbled to the mystery of it and the magnificence of it. Anyway, that makes me realize, here we are moving into this house for 2 months, and it's two of us in this house by the river, in the woods, in the mountains. There's no other people, right? So it could go like, we could go from heaven to hell. I know what couple dynamics are like, right? We could live in heaven for 2 months, we could live in hell for 2 months, and it's bringing my awareness to like, what's the power of my intention? To start the day with an intention, to start the day with a prayer, as I unpack, as I move in. What's this day about for me? All right, it's about love, it's about beauty, it's about loving our home, loving him, loving us. It's about making beauty here, unpacking, moving things around. We could live in lovely energy, or we could descend into hell, and both things are fully possible. So, power of intention. Now, as I do what we might call orienting towards the light, right? Love and beauty. I'm choosing love and beauty here. Does that mean I don't want to know about evil? I only want to know about love. Does that mean I then am not willing to acknowledge problems, suffering, hard feelings, etc., brokenness, problems? And if I'm not willing, but they're there, I then psychologically, I've got to put them somewhere outside of me, because I'm choosing love and light, and I can't, there's not room in my view for them. And so we have the other. And whether it's immigrants, or whether it's Tories, or whether it's the scapegoat, or whether, it's this, well, they're the source of our problems. We right, you bad and wrong, you bedong. I've seen scapegoating happen in a community, and it was ghastly. And it was an American community, and the woman scapegoated was English. And I always feel in conflict, as a default, claim 50% with the responsibility, even if you can't see it right now. Never be like, hey Tim, we've got in conflict and it's 100% your fault, and I'm gonna let you know about it. I'm right, you're wrong. Here's the attack and here's the defense. It's like, yeah, I don't want to live that way. Oh, something's come up between us. I can't see my part in it yet, but I'm just going to assume 50% of the responsibility. And then that gives us a possibility to dialogue, to heal, to be curious and compassionate. And then we have a different outcome. So, yeah, I think your point about the scapegoat leads us to like, are we willing to acknowledge the power of our intention, be grateful, see the power that we have to be generous, to choose love, to choose to be loving, and yet not turn from our own shadows, from those of others, and to let them be as close as within our own skin, so we don't have to project them.
So interesting, because the river consciousness idea comes up for me when I hear you talking about choosing the light or not choosing the dark, or that describes human consciousness. Is constantly like this, that, this, but maybe there's a place behind that which is just conscious of whatever there is, without judgment, without choice. And maybe river consciousness is more like that. If it, I can't understand it because I'm not a river, but maybe that thing in me that in those rare moments I get to glimpse, which seems to be disembodied, which seems to contain everything, which seems to unify everything, maybe that is in the river too. And that's river consciousness. Because it seems so likely to me, the more I live, the more I experience, the more I observe just the overwhelming isness and beauty of what's around me. And it does feel like it's just a part of this human condition, the struggle with everything, and and the irony, of course, the nature's idiot, as somebody once described humans to me, and I thought was a brilliant phrase. It's like the village idiot. Like they think they're God, they think they're the king of the world. They have all the power, they control everything, it's up to them. And all of nature around is like totally sympathetic and caring, and tolerates all the transgressions and the insults and the fuck ups and the total getting it wrong, but loves the idiot, because the idiot is part of the community as well, and brings some kind of magic or joy or treasure.
Flavor and yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the river. Wow, the river. Fuck. I was going to say the river, it's so deep. I mean, it is. It is, though, isn't it? It's so powerful. Well, water, I mean, water to me is one of the fundamentals of everything. I mean, we're made of it mostly, but its movement through the landscape, through the world, and its connection, how it connects all of life. If you think about it, everything that we call living has water in common. It's what connects everything. And this movement of it through the landscape, from the sky, from the air, down the mountain, through the valleys, to the sea, cleansing as well, like carrying, cleansing, bringing life, taking away death, reset, constantly moving, but always the same. It's all these things, all these paradoxes, and all
And
those patterns in the water that
the
kind
way
of form
it
for a
works.
while and then they shift. It's
Yeah.
got everything. It's like all the stories are in the river that ever were. Everything that ever was is in the river. What an amazing place to be living for the spring in France. I mean, I'm feeling such joy imagining what that will be like. I can do this now. I can do this. I can really like experience a bit of what someone else is doing and feel the joy of it and the happiness.
Compersion.
Yeah, just by seeing, as soon as I saw you in that light this morning, I felt it all. It was like I was there in the garden, like, oh, what a great place to be. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. And the way the river works with the soil as well, the earth. Always held by earth and stones, the containment of the bank. Well, the river, anyway, is always contained by the banks, and what is dead falls in whatever size pieces to the earth, where the earth knows how to compost. The river is like, okay, you're ready. You're ready for the earth. The earth knows what to do with you now that you're dead. Um, we went, John Mika's involved in a Ecolio, an eco-village project, and yesterday we went to see a property. It was this like insanely beautiful French, I don't know, 7-bedroom property spread out on the top of a hill, beautiful gardens, the happiest retired sheep you've ever seen bounding. Hey, humans, who are you? We're so happy. We're retired sheep. We get to die of old age. We're on this beautiful hill. I mean, it was great. There was this whole barn. You could see turning it into a retreat center. And it was like 670,000 euros on 35 hectares of land. I mean, it was insane. Like, for a British person, insane, insanely gorgeous. And yet, in the heart of things, there's a no, because it's high up on the hill and the river is all the way down the hill and the river is weak. And we look at that and say, it's that weak in April 2021. What's it going to be like in August 2031,
yeah.
let alone 2050? And it all depends on the water.
Mm. That's probably the first consideration, I would say, in choosing a place is water.
Yeah.
Water, and then sun second. Like, where's the sun? What's the shape? Which way is the land facing? What's the wind doing through the year? What are the seasons? What's the climate?
What's
This,
the quality of the
everything else
soil?
is
How
second.
windy is it? It's the elements, the elemental consideration. How's the water, the
Absolutely.
fire,
They're the
the
most
earth,
important
the
thing.
air? Yeah.
And then, so many other layers, I guess, like sort of, but they're more transitionary. You could even say like culture and politics of a particular land or country but that can shift and does. But the water, well, the climate shifting too. But those things are so primary, aren't they? And they are foundational. And something. If that feels right, I think I would instinctively feel that now if I went anywhere. Those are the first things my body is sensing, like, okay, what's the water situation, which direction are we facing, is this a frost pocket, is that a southerly slope where we can grow something, it's going to be a nice sort of microclimate.
Yeah,
Yeah, interesting.
I think
So
that's
is this
ultimately.
is this something you're looking at for yourself as well, somewhere to
I think I just got. I think I just had an application form submitted in French this morning for the French eco village. I don't know. I don't know, Tim. I'm involved in a British and an American and a French eco village at this point. I have a British passport, an American passport, and a French residency application in process. I don't know. At the moment, it's just triangulated energy at this point, and we'll see.
So is that more a thing of keeping your options open, do you think? You just sort of, or is that a general state for you? Or is it that you're holding out to see where you can then put some roots in, or is it more comfortable for you to be in this, to have your exits or your alternatives?
I definitely like having my exits.
Mm.
Definitely, I don't mind an exit. I like an exit.
Or three,
God, or three.
or two.
God, I mean, yeah, we went through some relationship drama last week, and I felt definitely trapped. My car was 100 miles away. The trains weren't running that late at night. Uh, it was a 7 p.m. curfew. It was like I had to stay in that house, and everything in me wanted to get out and run. I was like, Jesus, I'm trapped. But ultimately, I'm not trapped, right? I've got money in the bank, car keys, passports, friends. I'm like, wow, women used to be really trapped. Like, if you didn't have an independent source of income, if you didn't have your own transport, God, the position people used to be in. So, yes, exits are good. Um, the reality of my life is that right at this point, I have my biggest sense of cultural belonging in the US West Coast. I've been kind of culturally wielded in a West Coast way, and that's where I fit in most easily. I've got ethnic identity in the UK, and my work is very, very welcome in the UK, and it has something healing in it. And I'm not sure if it's like uniquely healing for British people because I'm British and I get it. And it's where I can really serve, it's where I've got medicine for the culture. And then France seems to be where I'm finding love with a man. So, and I am finding something with Jean-Michel that I was struggling to find with men in America or Britain in terms of like the realms in which he exists and that we can share together is like super compelling for both of us. So, um,
So what, culturally he's different because is he French then?
he's French and American.
Right.
His mum's from San Francisco, but his dad's French. Yeah. Culturally, he has a, I don't know, what should we talk? He has an outer consciousness where he was head of sustainability transition at Airbus, so he's read all the climate change data, and he and I have both read a lot of climate change data, and we're like, holy shit, build communities of resilience and regeneration. I suppose we're both afraid of collapse, and we might say woke to the range of possibilities that we might see happening at some point. So there's that kind of outer consciousness. I find that more in Britain and not very much in America. I'm not finding many people really ready to have those conversations in the US. More people are having them in Britain. Then he has this deep inner consciousness, a lot of healing and depth work. That's very common in America. I find it less common in Britain. I find that level of inner consciousness actually quite hard to find in people in Britain, to be honest. I might be in the wrong corners. I may have missed it. So here's that inner and outer depth. And then a lot of embodiment and play and free. I mean, he was just half an hour ago dancing naked around this garden. Like he's very sort of free embodied human. He's super smart. He's an engineer, very practical. So there's a lot of levels at which he's great and he's beautiful and sexy. It's important. So
But what
yeah,
about
it's
your
go on.
relationship with the place? I mean, I can
My,
see that when you're in love and there's this person who is there, that's that's partly a reason to be there. But what about Briony in France, outside of relationship? What's going on in that place? If you want to
this,
share this in a
yeah,
public
no,
space.
that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This land, this land has a softness and a depth and a breadth that I feel in my body, and I love. And I started to feel it. It was coming to me in dreams as I was packing up my room in Wales. Just this incredibly deep earth, mellow softness. And then when I arrived and I went out on the land and I sat and I sung hello and may I be here, and it just flooded me. It's like, oh wow, this land is really inviting the body and the soul to like slow down and widen in a beautiful way. People say that there's a sacred feminine earth energy awakening here that's awakened in the last 10 years. People call it enchanted. There's stories about, I don't know if any of them are true, but there's stories about how the old temple priestesses, when they were kicked out of Jerusalem, they went to Egypt. When they were kicked out of Egypt, they got on boats and they came here to the south of France. And this kind of she priestess, earth-based spirituality energy was practiced here a lot. Then I'm told the witch trials began here in the Cathar region because you had such a strong earth-based feminine spirituality happening here. Burn the witches started here. So I'm hearing all this in kind of bits and pieces from hearsay, from what people say. I haven't read anything seriously historical. It's and then somebody looked at me the day and they said, I think you're of these parts. I think you've been here in previous lifetimes. And I have basically just fallen in love with these mountains, and I've fallen in love with this man and these mountains kind of at the same time. And I start thinking, wow, what would it be to become like a woman of the Pyrenees? Like, am I a Pyrenees woman? Like, whoa. I mean, I am right now. I am today. I am this morning. I am for the next 2 months. And then the projects are talking about becoming carbon neutral. So are we talking about horse and cart travel? Are we talking about sailboats? I think for me, a kind of single place routing probably isn't possible or likely in this lifetime, given my spread of belonging in different places. But I also, I suppose, have been in the last year sort of, there's been this narrative of belonging that people like Martin Shaw and Alistair McIntosh, they're like root in a place, become of it, get to know it intimately, the ecology, the culture, take your place, belong. And I found that quite compelling for a while, and I tried to do that in Wales, and I was frigging miserable. And I'm like, well, Alistair, you're from Scotland and it's a beautiful place and you've always been there. And Martin, you're from Devon and it's a beautiful place and you've always been there. You have the privilege of like growing up in places that are beautiful to belong to. Where I grew up in Beccles is going to be under water in 100 years. And the land has been so deadened by large-scale agriculture that the magic that was woven through it in my childhood, either I'm an old lady now or a middle-aged lady now and I can't feel the magic so much anymore, or it's been expunged by conventional agriculture in the area. But yeah, I don't want to belong to Beccles. I'm not very interested in Beccles. Sorry, Beccles. Yeah, so for me, it's been more like accepting my bird nature, my whale nature, my migratory nature, and saying, yeah, I think I'm a human that likes to travel and migrate and have belonging in different places, and be she who goes between, and she who weaves, and she who connects and exchanges between cultures.
Yeah, because rooting's not for everybody, of course. We're all different, and as you say, there are different ways, and there are animals that move all the time, that are migratory, that never stay in the same place. So yeah, it's one of the challenges, isn't it, when you find something wonderful, and this is something that's good for me to bear in mind. It may be right for you, but it's not right for everybody. You can share that, but everyone else gets to choose whether it's relevant to them or not. So, it seems like you are more comfortable in this moving world that you're in than and the idea, I get it, in the kind of times of crisis, the idea of rooting makes a lot of sense, and we do need and will need places where things can be rooted and grow and sort of have resilience is the word I would use. That will be necessary, but we'll also be needing some serious flexibility and ability to move quick and surf. So I think both those kind of qualities embodied in different people are vital. So
I love it, Tim, and I. But the one thing I changed about that is that we will need resilience. I think we do need resilience right now. If we think about, sure, we talk about the ecological collapse and, let's say, the future ecological collapse, but like, what about the social one? And what about, excuse me, COVID isolation? Like, where is our community resilience? And actually, you have it up here, Foss, where I have been living the last 2 months, 10 minutes down the road. I got there, right, coming from England, so interrogated at the border, French police, British police, all right, on I went with a ship of truckers who were the only other people who were legally allowed to travel. Masks, documents, expensive COVID tests, fear. I drove almost without stopping across France, and I arrive in Foss. And the next day, the mayor, who lives next door, who's this 40-something wildlife photographer, adventure man, who's also the mayor of Foss, he comes round to say hi. He walks into my house without a mask, stands like a meter away from me, kind of literally breathing at me on purpose. Hi, welcome, in fast French. I'm like, hi. Yeah, people are not wearing masks. They're not, because it's a high mountain bubble. They're just like, fuck it. We're isolated as a village. We're isolated as a community. We don't need to fear one another. And it basically isn't COVID here, as far as I can tell. So
yeah, maybe not so that they're isolated in that sense, but there's just a kind of understanding that's different in the countryside, and I know it here a bit as well. There's a kind of healthy mistrust of all things urban and technological that may actually see us through, because it's the fucking urbanites, it's the city people that are full of fear and panic and bureaucracy and ideas and control. Country people are a lot more practical and just like, get the fuck on with it. It's just life. We're all right. We'll deal with it. If I get ill, well, I get ill. I'll work it out. It's all head stuff in the city, and that's what you see. Yeah, I mean, great that you kind of broke through that membrane of bureaucratic hell and fear to another
yeah,
healthy oasis. Yeah.
yeah. I'm glad I did. So
Mm.
resilience and flexibility, routing and pathways, routing and railroads, routing and flight paths. Probably not flight anymore. Sail paths. Yeah, the both and.
Yeah, I think so. And rooting in yourself, obviously, that's the thing, isn't it? Wherever you are, you can ground, you can plug in instantly to the earth wherever you are.
Well, exactly, because there's a rock up that hill on the other side, and a few weeks ago we were here and we were checking it out and we were walking, and that morning we'd watched I'd played Jean-Michel Great Spirit by Nako Bear. Do you know the song or the music
Yeah,
video?
yeah.
Great Spirit, I have had it. Bring me back to the nomadic ways of weaving through the damage. Mindful, stay mindful. And in the video, they've got various of them in nature, kind of moving, animaling through the trees. And when I saw the music video, it was mind blowing to me, because I was like, wow, I do that, and I love doing that, but I take every measure to stay completely secretive about it. And they've turned the cameras on and turned it into a music video. I was like, game changer. So he and I started talking about nature connection, what are our ways of doing it. And so on the other side of the river that day, we did what I named a threshold practice, where you define a threshold, you step over it, and then you're just in your non-verbal presence and connection with the life there, however you want to be. It was exquisitely beautiful. And I found a rock, and I was exploring different ways of like getting close to the rock. Oh boy, I've got a low battery, I might have to take you inside. And finally I sat on the rock, and I was just filled with such a peace. In French, the word for landing is atterrir, is to land, right? But it only works with the land, because terre is land, atterrir. If you land on the sea, it has to be amerrir, because you're if you land on the moon, it has to be alunir. You can only land on land. And
Well,
sitting on the
yeah,
rock,
you just said it. Landing, land, right? Same in English.
right? But you can land on the moon,
We
and you
use,
can land on the sea in
yeah, we
English.
do, but its origin is clearly, the land.
It's the same as the atelier. And the rock kind of seemed to say, like, oh, Bri, I think you need a bit of this atterrissement. I don't know how you conjugate the verb, but, and I wept a little. I was like, oh, yeah, I do. Like, okay, bird woman. Okay, air sign lady. Just stay a while, just land a while. And that's it. I think, narratives of nationalism land on your land. Where is your blood from? What is your land? Land on your land. I don't know if that's true for me.
Mm.
Land on the land, worship the water, swim in the water, drink from the water. And it doesn't necessarily have to be where my blood is from.
Yeah, and it's the same connected land underneath. It's all joined, and there are echoes, there are cousins. The rocks, similar kinds of rocks in one part of the world to another. There's all of these things, relationships going on. Rock. When you talk about the rock, then it reminds me of an experience I had in Hebden Bridge, because I've got such an attachment to rock. It's so funny that I live in Norfolk where there isn't any rock. There's only chalk underneath, which is hardly rock at all. It's soft, and little bits of flint. But I love rock, like proper rock, Cumbrian, Scottish, Welsh, those places. The West, Cornwall, and Devon as well, Dartmoor, places like that. That kind of ancient rock. The feeling of, I mean, the beauty of it. First of all, just seeing it and all its forms, I'm fascinated by the beauty of it. But the feeling of it, and I lay down on this rock by a river in Hebden Bridge, and I don't think I've ever felt that relaxed in my life. It was like being hugged, and I could just melt, and it was warm, and it was a stillness, and obviously it's rock, so it's hard, but it was a softness as well. It was this weird kind of soft hardness that I could actually relax into. Oh, and there was nothing to do. It was just I was being held. I was actually being held like a baby that has no obstacles to letting go into a hold. It was like that. And finding, I imagine, because I've never lived actually in close proximity to rock, I've only ever visited, really. I mean, I had a few periods in Cumbria when my family lived up there, but I imagine that rocks become like friends, or like the trees have here. I know individual trees and they've become kind of part of my extended family in a way. And I imagine
Mm.
rocks it would be similar, like you've met somebody there that you can then go back to, and you know,
Yeah,
somebody
somebody
who
it
kind of
feels really good
listen,
to be with.
or will be there for your tears or whatever it is, and different rocks might give you different energy. And you're probably going to start, now that you're in an open relationship, you're probably going to start getting it on with the rocks as well, which I could
I've
imagine
been
would be
getting it on
quite
with.
wonderful, quite a sensual experience, if you haven't
No,
already, that is.
I'm so monogamous. I've been getting it on with rocks for a long time,
Yeah.
actually, or trees. Or yeah, I think there is an eroticism in nature that sometimes you feel and can share. And yeah, in Dagara, in the spiritual tradition of Burkina Faso, I've got 3%, by the way. So at some point, I'm going to have to take you inside the messy, half unpacked house. Or pause.
The shadow,
Anyway, in Dagara,
from the light to the shadow.
in the Dagara tradition, rocks are the mineral nation and they're the memory keepers of the planet because the timeline that they're inhabiting is so different from that of the trees, or like the trees, the standing ones, or to the humans, or to the insects. We're all living different. Somebody else is getting a Zoom tour around. Salut. Ah, c'est André. Salut, André. I'm doing an. um, yeah, and then the memory keepers, and some of us can. Here's the thing: when we think about communication, and this is what I'm really thinking about with consciousness, I do have an experience of communication with trees, with water, with rocks sometimes. And there's times, particularly when I improvise vocally, it opens up this kind of channel, and you get songs, you get images, visions, you get data. And, like being on the rocks overlooking the East Bay in California, the rocks were kind of crying because they'd seen thousands upon thousands of years of Native American lifestyle there that was in harmony with the rest of life. And then they saw these grid urban highways, concrete, massively destructive way of life. And it was as if the rocks were weeping. And it was as if I was getting kind of photograph albums of memory from the rock. So, yeah, does the rock have a frontal lobes? Does it direct its intention? No, but do I have a sense that it has memory and I can communicate with it somehow? Yeah. Is that my human objection? Maybe. It's quite mysterious.
Of course, in rock time, the Europeans coming to America is just like 3 seconds. Just close their eyes, have a nap, wake up. Oh, they've gone. What's next? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Rock. The patience of stone. Yeah, nothing we do touches the rocks in any meaningful way. I don't think. I mean, apart from maybe love, it's just sort of weather on the surface of the skin.
Mm-mm.
Mm.
Tim, can we
Yeah, let's
take a
pause.
little pause?
Hmm.
Okay, you pause the thing, box of memory.
Okay.
Mm.
Now you're inside.
Yeah,
Could be anywhere.
it could be anywhere. Yeah, with plug in. Plug
Mm.
in. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that thing of being out in the world on rocks and having those sensual experiences and nakedness. Being naked outside is such a wonderful feeling. If you can, I mean, I guess it comes more easily to some people than others because there's the whole cultural inhibition suitcase to sort of pull out and throw away. But once you manage to do that, it's a wonder why people aren't doing it all the time. That's what I feel. Whenever I have that experience of being naked outside, I think, why aren't we doing this all the time when it's warm?
Mm.
Or even when it's cold, because it can be really kind of invigorating. I mean, I do it briefly every day when I have a shower outside, so I get a little taste of it.
Mm.
But it's just one of those obvious, simple things. It's so wonderful. And you think, well, I wouldn't ever need to ever buy anything again if I realized how great just being alive was, walking around
Well,
naked in nature.
that's it. Like the reclaiming of our pleasures. Like, yeah, if we can sing together, if we can touch each other, if we can make love, if we can be naked, if we can be naked on rocks, if we can have really rewarding connections with plants, animals, one another, dance together. Like our capacity to feel pleasure
Mm.
is vast. And I think what I find about urban life is it actually really numbs those capacities. And once you're numb, you can't find that much pleasure in those things. You sort of seem to need more and more and more other kinds of stimulation.
Yeah, it's like
You,
you get overstimulated and then you need more stimulation to feel anything. And then it's
yeah.
like the vibrator can't be big enough or buzzy enough to get there. Yeah, it
Or
just,
you can't do it without coffee, or you can't do it
yeah,
without
yeah, as
alcohol,
well,
or
and this and that,
opiates,
and
or
that, and yeah,
yeah, on and on. And
yeah,
actually, the more you strip those things away, the more sitting on a rock can be the nicest frigging thing.
yeah.
Or hearing each other sing.
Mm.
Mm,
This is something so important, I feel. This is a big piece of the remembrance that I'm hoping spreads is that we actually have everything we need right now, and it's wonderful. And pretty much everyone can access it immediately. This is a great thing to know and to kind of, but it will take individuals who are more kind of exploratory and uninhibited to normalize it, if you like, to reculturalize it and make it. And that's kind of what's happening anyway, isn't it? Even just the things that you're doing, that I'm doing, that people we know are doing, in all those different ways, they're all reintroducing these things into culture. Because this is not new, clearly, this is.
right. But I do think, finding the pleasure in a song or a rock or a hug does require that you be in the body, does require that you're embodied, and does require that you're that you're feeling the pleasure in your body. And I think that's the journey for people often. Like when I started teaching retreats, the first retreat I did was at Embodiment, and there we had no alcohol. The only place people had internet was this little doorway, and the rest of it, no internet. And we had embodiment, singing, healthy food, didn't even have any chocolate, sugar, or anything. Everybody went nuts. Nuts. I was like, oh shit. Um, I thought it was my fault. I thought it was my job to fix them. I realized it wasn't my fault. I realized it wasn't my job to fix them. It was just actually that normal life would pushing so many things down that once you take the distractions away, you lift up the lid on that, and it all comes up. By the end of the week, everybody's in kind of literally in cuddled puddles of bliss and says it's the most amazing week of their life. And it's this kind of this huge process of, I suppose, going in and out. I suppose that's the healing journey in a way. That's the liberation journey, is to take away the simulacra that we're compensating with or hiding behind or coping with, to then suffer the loss of it, feel what wants to be uncovered underneath it, be it our bodies or our voices or our sexuality or whatever. And there you go, being my own teacher. And then at some point it comes back. There's a suffering in that, but then there's a liberation and an exaltation. So I think yes, these things are available to everybody, but for some of us, like, not without a journey.
Well, this is the journey of the times in a way, isn't it? Is the both individually and collectively to sift through all that sediment and kind of uncover and release and let go of and unlearn. And yeah, and it's sort of the opposite of doing, it's undoing, isn't it? It's kind of, it's not pushing something else in, it's actually release rather than it's a more, yeah, it's the letting go, it's a more passive energy in a way.
It's like water.
Yeah, it's the river. It's getting in the river and just letting it carry everything. Go past, smooth the boulders down, soften the edges.
Yielding, releasing.
Yeah. And that deep, strong gravity and force of water. You know, whenever you've been in water and you felt it move, and it's completely liquid, there's nothing hard, but it's so strong.
So strong.
It's so deep, and the gravity of it and the power of it. There's so much energy.
It can keep you under. I had a shoulder injury for months from when a wave kind of tumbled me under trying to swim to breathe. And water. Yeah,
one of the most powerful forces. Yeah, the river. Back to the river.
Back to the river. Talking about rivers, I should go, Tim. I'm filming my first ever music video today by a river. Exciting. For a song called Die Every Day, and we've got to do it before spring gets too full on, because it's kind of wintry, right? It's north, release, let go. Should really be filmed in autumn, but there you go. So yeah, we want to get the sun coming through the winter trees and film it by a different river further up the hill. Well, it's been filmed by a guy called Tanner, who was a fashion photographer in London, and then gave it all up to be a peace pilgrim, and he's been walking around the world on his feet, finding ways to bring peace ever since. And he's around the corner, so he's going to film the music video for me.
Well, that's a wonderful story in itself. Well, I look forward to seeing it.
Okay, better get some makeup on.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, thank you.
I love these conversations with you, Tim. Thank you for inviting them into me. And I love the way we improvise them, and we never have an agenda, and we never know where it's going to go or what's going to happen. We just explore, and it's really lovely. Thank you.
It's the best way. Okay.